Morning came softly over New Terra City. The sky had a faint golden glow, and the tall glass towers reflected the light like mirrors. Officer Mira began her daily patrol through the lower district. Her boots clicked gently against the clean metal road as small service drones floated past her. The colony was peaceful that morning. Children were going to school, vendors were setting up small stalls, and a light breeze carried the smell of fresh food from the bakery dome nearby. Mira smiled to herself. It was a rare calm day, and she liked it that way. She had served as a peace officer for many years. Her duty was to protect the people of New Terra, to keep order among humans and the small number of helper machines that lived there. Mira was calm and careful by nature. She always followed her route on time and paid attention to the smallest detail. That morning, something small and quiet caught her attention. A soft sound followed her from behind. It was not loud, but it was steady. She turned around and saw a tiny puppy standing a few steps away. Its fur was pale gray, almost silver under the colony lights. Its eyes were big and brown, full of light and life. The puppy tilted its head as if it wanted to say something but could not speak. Mira blinked in surprise. Pets were rare in New Terra. Most people kept robotic companions because they needed less care. A living puppy walking alone was not something she saw every day. She smiled kindly and crouched down. "Hey there, little one. Where did you come from?" she asked. The puppy wagged its small tail and took 2 steps forward. Mira looked for a collar, but from a distance she could not see one. The puppy barked softly, almost like it wanted her attention. Mira stood up again and continued walking. She thought the puppy might return home on its own. But as she walked past the next corner, the same sound followed again. She stopped and turned. The puppy was there, still walking behind her with small, quick steps. "Go home, little one," Mira said. She waved her hand gently. The puppy stopped for a second, then gave a short whine and ran forward to catch up with her boots. Mira sighed. She had to keep her route, so she decided to ignore it for a while. But no matter how far she walked, the little creature stayed close. Sometimes it hid behind a wall when a drone passed, then hurried out again. Sometimes it walked right beside her, looking up with bright eyes. After 20 minutes, Mira stopped in front of the central plaza. The puppy sat down beside her boots and gave a small sneeze. It looked tired, but still happy to see her. Mira bent down again. This time she touched its head. The fur was soft but cold. The puppy had been outside for some time. She searched for a collar and found a thin silver band hidden in the fur. It had some tiny letters engraved on it. Mira leaned closer to read. The words said Unit 9B. Mira frowned.
That was not a normal pet tag.
It sounded like a machine code. She checked the band carefully and saw a small blinking light under the surface. The light was faint, like a low-power signal. "Strange," she whispered. "You are not just a regular puppy, are you?" The puppy barked once as if to answer. Mira laughed softly. "All right, little Unit 9B, where is your home?" She tapped her wrist communicator and scanned the signal. The visor over her eye showed a small energy line leading away from the plaza. The signal came from the direction of the old research district. That place had been closed months ago after an equipment failure. No one was supposed to go there without permission. Mira looked down at the puppy. It barked again, wagging its tail toward the same direction. She could not help smiling. "You want me to follow you, don't you?" The puppy barked twice. Mira thought for a moment. Her patrol route was almost done. She could take a short look without breaking any rule. Besides, something in the puppy's eyes felt different. It was not fear or hunger. It was more like need. Like it wanted to show her something important. She nodded. "All right then, show me where to go." The puppy turned and ran ahead, stopping every few steps to make sure she followed. Mira walked behind at a steady pace. The streets grew quieter as they moved closer to the edge of the city. The tall towers became fewer, replaced by older buildings covered in dust. The lights above were dimmer here. Few people lived in this part anymore. As they passed under an old sky bridge, Mira noticed strange marks on the ground. They looked like small footprints mixed with faint machine tracks. She bent down to look closer. The tracks seemed recent. Maybe someone had been moving equipment out of the old research zone. The puppy barked once and pulled at her sleeve gently. It wanted her to keep moving. They walked for another 10 minutes until they reached the security fence that surrounded the research district. The tall metal gate stood closed, covered in old warning signs. Most of them were faded. The puppy squeezed through a small gap under the fence with ease. Mira shook her head. Hey, come back here, she called. The puppy barked from the other side and wagged its tail. Mira sighed again and opened a small access panel beside the gate. Her officer badge gave her limited clearance, enough to enter for inspection. The gate opened with a low hum. Inside, the air felt cooler and quiet. The place looked forgotten. Old labs lined the streets, their glass windows fogged and cracked. Mira could see vines growing along the sides of some walls. The puppy ran ahead but always stopped to check if she was close. Mira's communicator beeped once. The energy signal from the collar was growing stronger. She followed it through a narrow passage until they reached a broken dome structure. A sign above the entrance said, "Companion Project Unit Development." Mira stared at it. She remembered reading about the Companion Project a few years ago. It was an experiment meant to combine organic life with memory cores to study emotional learning in animals. The project had been quiet after the accident. The puppy stopped at the entrance and whimpered softly. Mira knelt beside it. "Is this where you came from?" she asked gently. The puppy gave a small nodding motion as if it understood. Inside, the place was filled with dust and silence. Old screens flickered faintly. Some machines were still working, running on emergency power. Mira looked around carefully. She could see work tables, empty cages, and a few glass containers. The puppy walked to one of the tables and placed its paw on it. A small tablet device lay there, half covered by papers. Mira brushed the dust away. The screen showed a message that read, "Backup Memory Core, Unit 9B. Mira felt a chill in her chest. So the puppy was not just alive, but connected to this project. Maybe it was one of the last living test subjects from the experiment. She looked at the puppy again. It sat quietly, watching her with gentle eyes. "You came to find help," Mira whispered. "You wanted someone to find this place again." The puppy gave a soft bark and rubbed its head against her hand. Mira took a deep breath. She knew she had to report this to the central office, but her heart told her to wait. Something about this moment felt sacred, as if the small creature had carried a message through time. The puppy had found her for a reason. She looked around the room again, noticing a small blinking light under one of the tables. It was faint but steady. She crouched and found a small power box with a memory card slot. It looked damaged but not broken. Mira touched the light switch beside it. The overhead lamp flickered once, then turned on. Dust sparkled in the air. The puppy barked softly, wagging its tail. Mira smiled. "All right, little one, I think I understand. You want me to fix this?" The puppy barked again, as if saying yes. Mira connected her wrist communicator to the box. A line of code scrolled across her visor. It confirmed partial data from the old companion project still existed. She could not open it yet, but at least it was not lost. She turned to the puppy. "You really are something special," she said kindly. The puppy jumped in a small circle and then sat again beside her boots. Mira felt warmth in her heart. She knew that in this quiet, forgotten place, something precious was waiting to be found. Maybe it was a piece of history. Maybe it was something even more important. For now, she decided to stay a little longer and learn what the little silver puppy wanted her to see. The soft hum of machines echoed around her, and the faint city lights outside faded into the gray horizon. Mira sat beside the puppy, gently patting its head. "We will find out together," she said softly. The puppy closed its eyes for a moment, leaning against her leg as if it finally felt safe. The officer and the tiny creature sat in the still air of the forgotten lab, unaware that their small meeting had already begun to change the future of New Terra. Morning light filtered through the cracks in the old laboratory dome. The air was still and quiet, filled with floating dust that shimmered in the soft glow. Officer Mira sat near the broken table, her back straight and her mind full of questions. The small puppy lay curled beside her, breathing softly. The silver light on its collar blinked once every few seconds. It was the only moving light in the room. Mira had stayed there through most of the night, studying what she could from the remains of the old companion project. Her communicator was connected to the damaged data core, but it could not open the files completely. Every time she tried, a security code blocked her access. She knew she could send a request to the Central Research Department for help, but she hesitated. The puppy had trusted her. She felt that this was something personal, something delicate that needed care and patience. As she leaned against the table, the puppy lifted its head and gave a small bark. Mira smiled faintly. "Good morning, little one," she said in a soft tone. The puppy stretched and wagged its tail. It seemed full of energy again. Mira gave it a piece of bread from her pack. The puppy ate happily and licked her glove after finishing. Mira laughed quietly. "You have good manners," she said. Then she looked again at the broken console beside her. "But I still do not know what you are trying to show me." She ran one more scan of the area. Her visor showed a faint energy trail leading deeper into the complex. The signal came from the same type of power core that was in the puppy's collar. Mira turned off the scanner and looked at the small creature. "Are there more like you?" she asked. The puppy tilted its head. Then it ran to the doorway and barked twice before looking back at her. Mira stood up slowly. "All right, lead the way then." The puppy trotted ahead through the dusty hallway. The walls were covered in faded signs, and the floor was scattered with bits of broken glass and wires. Mira stepped carefully. Every sound echoed softly in the empty place. The puppy walked with surprising confidence as if it remembered this path. They reached a lower level of the lab. The doors here were smaller, made for storage or side experiments. Some doors were open, showing shelves with old equipment. The puppy stopped in front of one of the closed doors and began to scratch it lightly. Mira noticed a small control panel beside it. She pressed her badge against it. The light turned green and the door opened slowly with a faint hiss. Inside was a small room filled with data drives and a central terminal. The puppy ran in at once and barked at the terminal. Mira followed. The terminal screen flickered weakly but still had power. She brushed the dust away and read the faded words. "Project Companion, Memory Synchronization Tests." Mira's breath caught for a moment. The Companion project was more advanced than she had thought. Memory synchronization was a form of emotional transfer research. It was supposed to help create learning patterns for future AI through empathy, using animal behavior as the base. It had been one of the most secret projects before the lab closed. She looked down at the puppy. Its silver collar blinked faster now. It seemed excited. Mira activated the terminal and lines of old data filled the screen. Some parts were damaged, but a few video files were still accessible. She clicked one. The screen showed a scientist sitting in the same room speaking to a camera. The scientist looked tired but kind. "This is Dr. Halen reporting day 91 of companion testing. The emotional synchronization continues. Unit 9B is showing strong response to human interaction. We believe it can recognize emotional tones, especially sadness and care. If successful, this will prove that shared memory bonds can be formed naturally through positive emotion." Mira felt her throat tighten a little. She turned to the puppy. "You're Unit 9B, she said softly. The puppy looked up and barked once. The video continued. The scientist smiled faintly at something off-screen. "She is very affectionate. We use the neural imprint of a child's laughter as the core seed. The emotional warmth is stronger than we expected. If we can keep the signal stable, we may be able to give future machines a sense of kindness." Then the screen turned black. The rest of the file was unreadable. Mira leaned back slowly. She felt both amazed and heavy-hearted. The project had tried to capture pure emotion, the best part of being human, and place it inside another being. And the result, that tiny puppy was still here, still trying to connect. The puppy barked again, pulling her sleeve gently with its teeth. Mira looked down. "What is it, little one?" The puppy ran toward a vent at the far side of the room. Its small paws made faint sounds as it moved. It began scratching again, but this time at the floor near the vent. Mira crouched beside it and tapped the floor with her knuckles. It sounded hollow. She felt around and found a small latch under the dust. When she pulled it, a square panel lifted up, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside was a small metal case. The puppy barked quickly and wagged its tail. Mira opened the case carefully. Inside lay a small crystal data core glowing faint blue. It looked like a personal memory storage unit, the kind used for research backups. A label on it read Project Log Final Entry. Mira placed it into her communicator. The data opened slowly, showing another video. The same scientist appeared again, this time with tired eyes. "If anyone finds this," the scientist said, "please take care of Unit 9B. The lab is closing after the system failure. We lost power in the main core, but the emotional imprint is safe within her collar. She carries a record of everything we learned about kindness. If she finds a human connection, the imprint will unlock and complete her purpose. That is all I can do now. She is not a machine. She is memory made alive." The video ended quietly. Mira sat still, staring at the screen. Her eyes were calm but full of feeling. She looked at the puppy again. It sat there, watching her with gentle eyes as if waiting for her reaction. Mira reached out and touched its small head. "You came to find help," she said softly. "You wanted someone to complete your purpose." The puppy gave a soft bark and leaned against her hand. Mira took a slow breath and stood up. "Then we will finish what your creator started," she said. She gathered the crystal core and placed it in a safe pocket. Then she looked around the room once more. The place was silent again except for the faint hum of the old machines. She noticed a door at the other end of the room that led downward. The puppy ran to it and waited. When she opened it, they found a stairway leading to a tunnel below. The air was cooler there, filled with faint light from old energy panels. The tunnel stretched far, leading under the city. Mira followed carefully, scanning for signs of movement. She felt a strange pull inside, as if something deeper was waiting for her at the end of this path. As they walked, she thought about the scientist's words. A memory made alive, a spark of emotion placed in a living creature. The idea was beautiful yet sad. How many people would understand the value of something like that? In a world full of machines and progress, kindness was sometimes forgotten. The puppy barked once and looked back at her. Its eyes shone with a small light that looked almost human. Mira smiled gently. "You are a brave little one," she said. They reached the end of the tunnel. There was another sealed chamber there. The door had a handprint scanner that no longer worked. Mira connected her communicator and overrode the old system. The door opened slowly, revealing a small circular room with one large console in the center. The puppy ran straight to it and placed its paw on the side. The console lit up faintly. Mira stepped closer. The screen displayed the words, "Emotion Core Interface." A series of blinking lights formed a pattern that matched the puppy's collar. The connection between them was still active. The console seemed to recognize the small creature. A voice came from the speaker, calm and gentle. "Unit 9B detected. Emotional pattern stable. Synchronization ready." Mira blinked in surprise. "Synchronization? With what?" she said quietly. The voice answered, "Awaiting human confirmation. Emotional link required to restore core memories." The puppy looked at her, tail wagging softly. Mira's heart began to beat faster. She remembered what the scientist said. The project needed a human bond, a moment of kindness to complete the process. She knelt beside the puppy and held its paw gently. "I confirm," she said firmly. The lights on the console brightened. A soft hum filled the air. The puppy's collar glowed warmly, and a thin beam of light connected it to the console. Mira could feel a strange warmth around her hand, like sunlight on her skin. The air vibrated softly and faint images appeared around them. For a brief moment, Mira saw flashes of laughter, gentle voices, and bright colors. It felt like memories of happiness. A child's laughter echoed faintly in the air. The puppy's eyes shone and it looked up at Mira with deep trust. Then the light faded slowly, leaving the room quiet once again. The console beeped once. Synchronization complete. Emotion core restored. Mira felt tears forming in her eyes, not from sadness but from wonder. The puppy jumped and barked happily, circling her feet. She smiled through the tears and picked it up. "You did it," she said softly. "You really did it." The puppy nuzzled against her shoulder, tail wagging fast. The faint glow from its collar now shone steady and bright. Mira looked around the silent room. Something inside her heart had changed. She felt that this was only the beginning. The next morning arrived with a soft golden glow across New Terra. The sky shimmered faintly above the tall glass towers as small transport drones moved quietly through the mist. Officer Mira walked through the central square, the small silver puppy trotting beside her. Its collar light blinked gently, no longer faint or broken but steady and warm. Many people turned to look at them as they passed. Real animals were rare in the city. Some smiled at the sight of the puppy wagging its tail beside a peace officer. Others whispered softly, wondering where it came from. Mira did not answer any questions. She kept walking calmly, her thoughts deep and heavy. She had spent most of the night studying the data she found in the tunnel. The files were clear now. They explained that the companion project had been built to preserve emotional memories through living connections. Each test unit was created with the memory imprint of pure feelings like joy, care, and trust. Unit 9B, the puppy beside her, carried the strongest imprint of them all. The project had failed after a system breakdown and the lab had been shut down. Only Unit 9B survived, protected by its small collar. Mira stopped near a fountain. The puppy sat beside her and looked up with wide brown eyes. She smiled and patted its head. "You have done something very special," she said softly. "But I think there is more to find." Her communicator buzzed on her wrist. A message appeared from the research department. They had detected her access to the old lab files and wanted a report. Mira read the message quietly and then turned it off. She did not want to hand over the puppy to cold machines or people who might use it as an experiment again. She wanted to understand the truth first. She knelt beside the puppy. "We need to go back," she said. "There might be something still hidden in that place. Something that explains everything." The puppy barked once and wagged its tail as if it agreed. Mira smiled again. She packed her small field bag and took her electric bike. The puppy sat safely inside a small carrier at the front, its head poking out happily. The road to the old research district was quiet that morning. The sunlight reflected off the tall buildings until they began to fade behind her. Soon she reached the same broken gate she had entered before. The air inside the district felt cooler and more still than before. The buildings stood silent like giant ghosts of the past. The puppy jumped down and sniffed the ground. Its light blinked faster, guiding Mira deeper into the complex. They walked through the empty hallways that smelled faintly of rust and dust. The puppy led the way, tail raised high. They reached a part of the lab that Mira had not explored before. A narrow door stood at the end of a hallway with broken lights. The puppy barked twice and scratched the door gently. Mira pressed the control panel. The screen was dark, so she connected her communicator to provide power. The lock clicked open. Inside was a wide room filled with strange equipment. Glass chambers lined the walls, some broken, others covered in thick dust. In the center stood a large round table with old monitors surrounding it. Mira walked slowly around the room, reading the faded labels. Neural growth chamber, emotion core stabilizer, memory link interface. The puppy walked to one of the glass chambers and began scratching it softly. Mira followed and wiped the dust from the glass. Inside, she saw the remains of what looked like a small mechanical frame. It was shaped like a puppy but without fur, built of soft white metal. Its eyes were dark and lifeless. She realized this must have been one of the early prototypes of the project. Next to the glass chamber lay a tablet covered in dust. Mira picked it up and tried to power it on. To her surprise, it still worked. A series of research logs appeared. She scrolled through them, reading carefully. One log caught her attention. It read, "Final test emotional stability reached 98%. Unit 9B shows self-guided behavior. Memory link active but incomplete. Emotional pattern requires human connection to unlock final stage. All staff ordered to leave facility due to system failure in lower core." Mira frowned slightly. "Incomplete," she whispered. She thought about the synchronization she saw in the tunnel. It had felt powerful and full of light, but maybe it had not been the final stage. Perhaps there was something more. The puppy barked softly, drawing her attention again. It was standing near the far wall where a small door led to another passage. The metal door was half broken and faint blue light leaked through the cracks. Mira pushed it open carefully. Behind the door was a smaller chamber filled with glowing blue wires that pulsed softly like veins of light. At the center stood a single glass pod connected to several cables. Inside the pod was a faintly glowing crystal sphere. It floated in the middle of a liquid field, spinning slowly. The light from it filled the room with a peaceful glow. Mira stepped closer and read the words on the base of the pod. "Core memory backup, companion project." Her heart began to beat faster. She realized that this might be the main data core of the project, the one the scientist had mentioned in the message before. The puppy ran to her side and looked up at the glowing sphere, its collar blinking rapidly. Mira bent down and patted its head gently. "This is what you wanted me to find, isn't it?" The puppy gave a soft bark. She took out her communicator and connected it to the control pad beside the pod. The system recognized her connection and began to show lines of data. The interface was old but still functional. A message appeared on the screen. "Memory core locked. Authorization required. Unit 9B connection detected. Human emotional key required for activation." Mira stared at the screen. "Emotional key," she murmured. They used feelings as a form of code. The puppy placed its paw on the control pad. Its collar glowed brighter. Mira watched as the energy field around the crystal sphere began to shimmer. The pod's glass cleared and small images started to form inside the light. She saw flashes of children laughing, people smiling, animals running through fields of green. It was like watching fragments of happiness frozen in the air. The puppy barked once and looked at Mira. The message on the screen changed again. Human link incomplete. Please initiate emotional transfer. Mira hesitated for a moment. She did not understand exactly what it meant, but she trusted the gentle voice she had heard before. She placed her hand beside the puppy's paw on the control pad. The system reacted at once. Warm light spread across the room. She felt a soft vibration travel up her arm. For a few seconds, she saw memories that were not her own. She saw the scientist working late at night, smiling softly at the same small puppy when it first opened its eyes. She saw the little creature learning to follow commands, wagging its tail whenever it heard laughter. She saw the scientist recording a message saying, "If she ever finds someone who cares, the project will live again." Mira's eyes filled with tears. The warmth of those memories was pure. It reminded her of everything kind and gentle that humans could be. The light faded slowly and the screen displayed new words. Core memory restored. Emotion archive activated. The glass pod opened with a soft sound. The crystal sphere floated out gently and hovered between Mira and the puppy. Its glow reflected in both their eyes. The puppy barked softly and the sphere responded with a faint pulse of light. Then it floated toward the puppy's collar and merged with it in a burst of soft blue radiance. When the light settled, the collar's blinking stopped. It now glowed steady and bright. The puppy's eyes shone with deep brown warmth that seemed almost human. It looked at Mira and gave a small happy bark before jumping into her arms. Mira held it close, her eyes wet. "You did it," she whispered. "You brought me here to finish what they started." The lights around the room dimmed. The machines began to shut down one by one as if their long task had finally ended. The energy pulse faded from the cables, leaving the place in peaceful silence. Mira took a slow breath and looked around one last time. The forgotten lab had finally completed its purpose. What had been left unfinished years ago was now whole again, not through machines or commands, but through care and understanding. Mira carried the puppy outside into the soft daylight. The morning sun was rising higher over the horizon, casting long beams of gold across the broken buildings. She stood still for a moment, feeling the gentle breeze touch her face. The puppy looked up at her and gave a cheerful bark. "You are not just a machine," she said softly. "You are memory, hope, and kindness. You are proof that the best part of humanity can live forever." The puppy wagged its tail and licked her glove. Mira smiled and began to walk toward the open road. Behind her, the old research lab stood quiet, its walls shining faintly under the morning sun. The city of New Terra was waking up again, full of new sounds and movement. But inside Mira's heart, a calm warmth remained. She now understood that sometimes the smallest creature could carry the biggest message. The puppy had not only asked for help, it had reminded her what it truly meant to care. As they reached the city gates, the puppy barked once more and ran in circles around her boots, full of joy. Mira laughed softly. "All right, little one," she said. "Let's go home. We have a new beginning to build." And together they walked into the bright day, leaving behind the shadows of the forgotten lab, carrying with them the light of something beautiful that would never be forgotten again. Evening fell softly over New Terra. The city lights began to glow across the glass towers, shining like a sky full of stars. Officer Mira sat near her small home garden, the silver puppy resting beside her. The faint blue light on its collar glowed steady and calm. The air was quiet except for the soft hum of the wind passing through the energy shields above the city. Mira looked at the tiny creature lying near her feet. She still could not believe what they had found inside the forgotten lab. The crystal memory core had merged into the puppy's collar, and its light had changed from blinking to steady. It meant that the project was complete, at least in the way the scientist had hoped. The puppy had found someone who cared, and that connection had unlocked something special inside it. Still, Mira felt that there was something more. The files she read mentioned a final stage, something called the human resonance field. The project logs did not explain what it meant. The words stayed in her mind like a quiet whisper. She looked down at the puppy again. "There is still a secret, isn't there, little one?" she said gently. The puppy raised its head and gave a small bark. Its eyes shone softly in the evening light. Mira smiled and patted its head. "We will find out together." The next day, Mira reported her findings to her senior officer. She did not mention every detail, only that she had found a functioning experimental unit from the old research project. The officer was surprised but trusted Mira's report. He gave her permission to continue observing the unit for research purposes. That gave her more time to learn without interference from the central lab. For several days, Mira kept a close watch on the puppy's behavior. It followed her everywhere, never leaving her side. It seemed to understand her words, even simple emotions. When she felt tired, it rested quietly beside her. When she smiled, it wagged its tail happily. She noticed that its collar glowed brighter whenever she laughed. It was as if it was feeding on positive energy. One evening, as Mira sat at her desk reading the old files again, the puppy began to whine softly. Its light flickered for a moment. Mira looked up quickly. "What is it, little one?" she asked. The puppy stood near the window, looking out toward the horizon where the old research district stood in the distance. Its collar blinked twice, then dimmed. Mira frowned slightly. "Something is wrong," she said to herself. She opened the records again and read through the last entries of the companion project. One note caught her attention. It read, "In case of instability, the main memory link will attempt to reconnect with the central network core to balance emotional energy. If no signal is received, the unit will weaken." Mira's heart sank a little. The project core must still have a signal link somewhere under the city. If it had become damaged or inactive, it could be affecting the puppy's stability. The emotional connection needed balance between the human and the network. Without it, the puppy could lose its strength. She stood up and called the small creature to her. "We are going back," she said. The puppy wagged its tail weakly, but its light flickered again. Mira felt a rush of concern. She gathered her equipment quickly and carried the puppy gently in her arms. The journey to the research district was quiet. The night air was cool and the roads were mostly empty. The city lights reflected faintly off her bike as she rode through the empty streets. The puppy lay still in the carrier, looking up at her with trusting eyes. When they reached the gate, Mira used her badge to enter again. The air inside was colder than before. The once bright sunlight that had filled the ruins now gave way to a silver glow from the moons above. She turned on her wrist light and began walking through the silent streets. The buildings looked even older under the pale light, their windows dark and cracked. The puppy gave a faint whimper. Its collar light dimmed further. Mira bent down and whispered softly, "Hold on, little one. We will fix this." She followed the faint signal trace from her communicator. It led her back through the same path to the deeper tunnel she had seen before. The old systems there still hummed quietly as if waiting for her return. The puppy perked its ears as they moved closer to the end of the tunnel. At the bottom stood the same chamber where they had completed the first synchronization. The consoles were dark now, but the faint energy still ran through the cables on the floor. Mira connected her communicator to the control pad again. The screen flickered weakly. A message appeared. "Warning. Core instability detected. Emotional balance dropping." Mira's chest tightened. "So that is it," she said quietly. "You are losing connection." The puppy placed its paw on the panel and the light from its collar blinked weakly. Mira watched as faint waves of blue energy tried to flow from the collar into the machine, but faded before reaching the console. The system could not accept the signal anymore. The main link was broken somewhere deeper underground. She turned to the puppy and said, "We need to find the central node. That is the only way to restore balance." The puppy barked faintly, its voice weak but determined. It turned toward a small service door at the back of the chamber. Mira noticed that she had not opened it before. The puppy scratched the door softly. Mira pressed the panel beside it, and the old mechanism opened with a low metallic sound. Behind the door was a narrow staircase leading downward. The air was cooler there, almost cold. Small lights on the wall flickered as she moved down. The puppy followed her slowly, staying close to her boots. The staircase ended in a wide underground hall. At the center stood a round platform with glowing cables running across the floor like veins of light. Above it hung a large circular device that looked like a giant metal flower, its petals folded inward. The walls were covered with old screens showing faint lines of code. Mira stepped forward carefully. Her communicator beeped. The signal strength increased sharply. She looked at the display. Central core node, active but unstable. She looked at the puppy. "We found it," she said. The puppy gave a small bark, its collar glowing slightly brighter. Mira connected her communicator to the nearest console. The system recognized the presence of Unit 9B and immediately displayed a warning message. Core connection weak. Emotional synchronization required to stabilize network. Mira placed her hand on the console. "I confirm connection," she said calmly. The machine hummed softly and the cables began to glow brighter. The air filled with gentle light. The puppy jumped onto the platform and sat at the center. The blue light from its collar spread outward, forming a soft ring around it. Mira watched as the giant metal petals above slowly began to open, revealing a large glowing crystal at the center. It pulsed weakly, matching the rhythm of the puppy's light. The connection between them was clear. This was the original heart of the companion project, the place where all emotional data had been stored. The voice of the system spoke softly. "Human emotional field required. Please maintain physical connection with Unit 9B. Mira stepped forward and knelt beside the puppy. She placed her hand gently on its back. "I am here," she said. The machine responded instantly. The lights around the room grew brighter. A wave of warmth spread through the air. Mira felt her heartbeat quicken. The crystal above began to glow in rhythm with her pulse. For a brief moment, she saw images of kindness and love filling the space around them. They were memories of people caring for one another, of laughter, of peace. The companion project had stored these memories as part of its emotional network. The puppy barked softly, its eyes glowing bright. Mira felt a soft warmth through her arm, like a calm heartbeat joining with hers. She whispered softly, "You are not alone. I am with you." The light spread across the entire hall, filling it with blue and gold hues. The old machine hummed louder, then steadied. The message on the console changed. Emotional resonance restored. Central core stable. The light began to calm, fading back to a soft glow. The puppy stood still, its collar now glowing steadily once more. Mira took a deep breath and looked around. The machines had become quiet again, but this time there was peace in the silence. The connection was whole. She picked up the puppy and held it close to her chest. Its small heart beat softly against her hand. "We did it," she whispered. "You are safe now." The puppy licked her cheek and gave a happy bark. The sound echoed gently through the hall, breaking the long stillness of the place. Mira smiled, tears shining faintly in her eyes. As she walked back through the tunnel, she felt lighter than before. The air around her seemed warmer, filled with a sense of calm. The puppy trotted happily beside her, its light shining softly on the walls. When they reached the surface, the first light of dawn was breaking over the city. The golden rays painted the buildings with color. Mira stood still for a moment, looking at the rising sun. The puppy wagged its tail and looked up at her. "You are more than a project," she said softly. "You are a bridge between what we create and what we feel. You remind us that even in a world of machines, the heart still matters most." The puppy barked cheerfully as if agreeing. Mira laughed softly and began walking toward the city gates. The light of the morning wrapped around them, and the road ahead looked bright and full of promise. Together they walked home, ready to face whatever came next. The lost connection had been found again, not only between the machine and its creator, but between hearts that still believed in kindness. The morning sun rose slowly above New Terra, painting the city with a soft golden light. The sky was clear and bright, and the energy towers shimmered like glass pillars touching the clouds. Officer Mira walked quietly along the path leading back from the old research district. The little silver puppy trotted beside her, its tail wagging happily. The blue light on its collar glowed steady and calm. The city was waking up. Airships hummed softly above, delivering supplies between towers. Workers began to fill the streets, and children laughed as they ran toward the learning centers. To anyone else, it looked like an ordinary morning, but for Mira, it was something far more special. She looked down at the puppy walking beside her and smiled. "You did well, little one," she said softly. The puppy barked once in reply, its bright eyes full of life. When they reached the colony gate, the guard looked surprised to see her. "Officer Mira," he said politely. "You were gone all night. Everything all right?" Mira nodded. "Yes, everything is fine now." The guard noticed the glowing puppy and smiled. "That little one again? It seems very fond of you." "It is," Mira replied with a warm smile, "and I am fond of it too." She stepped through the gate and continued down the street toward her quarters. The puppy stayed close, sometimes stopping to sniff at the flowers or look curiously at the people passing by. Every time it did, the people smiled. There was something peaceful about the small creature. It carried a warmth that touched everyone around it. Mira could feel that warmth too. It reminded her of what she had seen deep inside the old lab. The crystal of light, the wave of emotions, and the vision of love and kindness that had filled the air. It had shown her something powerful. Machines could be built by hands, but they could only truly live when they connected with hearts. When Mira reached her small home, she opened the door and let the puppy inside. It ran across the room and jumped onto the couch, wagging its tail happily. Mira laughed softly. "You are getting too comfortable," she said, setting her gear aside. She poured a small bowl of water and placed it near the couch. The puppy ran to it quickly and began to drink. Its collar glowed a faint blue as it drank. Mira sat beside it and gently rubbed its soft fur. "You are special," she said. "You carry something very old yet very new. You remind me that feelings are as important as science." Later that morning, Mira received a message from the colony's research council. They had reviewed her report on the discovery of Unit 9B. They requested her presence to discuss the next steps. She looked down at the puppy and said, "Looks like they want to meet you too." When they arrived at the council building, several researchers were waiting. They were curious and excited to see the small creature. Mira held the puppy carefully as they approached. "This is the last active unit from the companion project," she explained. "It reconnected with the central core and restored the emotional network. The system is now stable." One of the researchers, an older man with kind eyes, nodded slowly. "That project was shut down after the accident," he said. "We believed the data was lost forever. But you found it again." Mira smiled faintly. "It was not me who found it," she said. "It found me." The researchers examined the puppy gently. Its collar emitted a soft hum as it reacted to their presence. "Amazing," one of them whispered. "It responds to emotions, not commands. The energy output rises when it senses kindness," Mira nodded. "Yes, it understands feelings. It connects through them. That is what makes it unique." The head of the council leaned forward. "Officer Mira, what do you plan to do with it?" Mira looked down at the puppy resting in her arms. "It needs care and love, not experiments. It was built to remind us of compassion. I will continue to care for it and share what I learn." The council members exchanged glances, then nodded in agreement. "We trust your judgment," the head said. "Perhaps this project can guide us to a better understanding of emotional technology." After the meeting, Mira walked outside again. The puppy barked happily, sensing her relief. She smiled. "You are free, little one. No more cold labs, no more tests. You are home." Over the next few weeks, life began to change for both of them. Mira resumed her duties as an officer, but now she had a small companion by her side. The people of New Terra began to notice the little silver puppy that followed her everywhere. Children ran to greet it, and elders smiled when it wagged its tail near them. One afternoon, Mira visited a small school near the city park. The children gathered around, curious about the glowing puppy. Mira sat down with them and said, "This little one is a very special friend. It teaches us that even machines can share feelings if we treat them with kindness." A small boy raised his hand. "Does it understand us?" he asked. Mira smiled. "Yes, in its own way. It listens to your heart more than your words." The puppy barked and wagged its tail as if agreeing. The children laughed, and the sound filled the park with joy. Mira watched them with a warm feeling inside. She realized that the project's purpose was finally complete. The companion was not just a machine. It was a bridge between people and technology, a symbol of hope. That night, Mira sat on her balcony watching the stars. The puppy lay beside her, its head resting on her lap. The gentle hum of the city filled the air. "Do you know something, little one?" she said softly. "When I first met you, I thought you were just lost. But you were never lost. You were finding your way home." The puppy looked up at her with soft eyes. The light from its collar reflected in her tears. She wiped them away gently and smiled. "You gave me hope. You reminded me why I became an officer, not to follow orders, but to help others find safety, love, and peace." As days turned into months, the story of Officer Mira and the silver puppy spread across the colony. People began creating programs inspired by the companion project. They developed small helper robots that could comfort children, assist the elderly, and bring warmth to lonely places. Each of them carried a small light, modeled after the puppy's collar to remind everyone of the bond between emotion and creation. One morning, Mira received a message from the central lab. The message read, New Terra Council honors you for rekindling the spirit of Project Companion. Humanity grows stronger when it remembers to feel. She placed the message on her wall beside her badge. The puppy barked happily at the shining text. You deserve the credit, she said, patting its head. You were the one who never gave up. That evening, Mira and the puppy went for a walk outside the city dome. The field stretched far and wide under the twilight sky. Soft grass moved with the wind and the horizon glowed with the colors of dusk. Mira sat down on a small rock and looked out toward the distance. This world has changed, she said quietly. When the colony first started, people worked hard to build machines that could think. But they forgot that hearts need care too. You helped us remember that. The puppy barked softly and placed its paw on her knee. Mira smiled and looked at the sky. The stars look brighter tonight, she said. For a while they sat in silence. The stars shone above them, and the city lights glimmered behind them. The puppy lay down beside her, closing its eyes. Its collar pulsed in a gentle rhythm like a heartbeat. Mira whispered softly, You are not just a companion. You are family. In that moment, the wind carried the sound of laughter from the distant colony. It mixed with the soft hum of the puppy's collar and the calm rhythm of Mira's breathing. It was the sound of peace. From that day on, people across New Terra began calling the puppy Hope. It became a symbol of faith in human kindness. Everywhere it went, people smiled. They said that when hope wagged its tail near someone, the air felt a little warmer and hearts felt a little lighter. Years later, children would hear the story of Officer Mira and the little puppy who followed her for help. They would learn that sometimes the smallest acts of care can restore what is lost. They would learn that love, once shared, never fades. Mira never forgot that first day when the little silver puppy had followed her through the streets, desperate for help. She never forgot how it had looked into her eyes, asking her to understand. And she never forgot how, in helping it, she had rediscovered herself. One evening, as the sun set behind the towers, Mira stood at the city gate once more. The same place where it had all begun. The puppy stood beside her, its fur now shining silver-white under the fading light. She looked down at it and said softly, You found me when I needed you most, and now together we found what humanity had forgotten. The puppy wagged its tail, the light on its collar glowing bright blue. Mira smiled and began walking toward the city. The puppy followed, its tiny paws tapping softly against the ground. And so, under the golden sky of New Terra, Officer Mira and her little companion walked side by side, carrying with them the lesson that would never be forgotten. That love, empathy, and hope are what make humanity truly strong.